Okay, I call this meeting to order, purpose of talking about the future of Highland High School. And at this time, we'll turn the time over to Dr. Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. I know that Mrs. Judy mentioned she'd be out of town with some family things, but by phone, Mrs. Oliver is able to join us today. So, and then we are live streaming as well, so technology has us fixed up that way. So for today, just to keep the momentum going, I would propose that I think I have like 4 goals for today. And one would be to share with the board the current status of Highland High School and the restoration project, the demolition, utility services, etc. Mr. Balls will cover that, as well as talk to you a little bit today about capital improvement projects and long-term projects that we had already been discussing, and that he had a conversation with those committees earlier in the year. So we'll review those with you. We'll get a little more insight from you after hearing about that in regard to more of a formal study or an informal study of our facilities and so forth. And so I know we touched on that a little bit last week. There was a timeline mentioned of what that comprehensive study would do, and maybe something that we could do a little less formally, or if there are specific properties or facilities that the board would like us to look at, we could do that. So those two kind of go hand in hand, really. And then Mr. Watson, Mrs. Pettit will talk to you a little bit today. Last week there was a question that was asked in regard to repurposing Highland High School if the board were to consider a new build. And so what would we do with that existing location? And again, the questions were asked in regard to elementary or middle school. And so we have outlined for you some advantages, disadvantages, and just general information that you have, I believe, included in your agenda. And then finally, we'll just need some board direction for future meetings and how you would like this team to work together for you to bring you the information you need to make a decision as we continue to progress through this very comprehensive package of ideas, and just getting the best done in the time that we have and meet some timelines. Again, if the board were to consider a bond election, we are looking at the middle of September for bond language. We would also need to put in place a financial planner and bond counsel to assist with that, as far as how the detailing of the language and the financing and selling the bond and so forth. So if that's something that you are considering, then we would like to get that information or have available for your review, potentially contracts with those individuals or those firms that could help us through the rest of this process, if we determine that bond is the way that we need to go. Again, looking at a time frame of September for a November election, or March for a May election. And so those are the goals that I have for today. And so if we could, if you don't have any questions yet, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Balls and let him start with the first 2 of those.
You bet, you bet. Thanks, Dr. Howell. Again, some good news and just kind of where we're at Highland. All of the utilities have been restored to Highland High School, so power, water, and gas. Appreciate Alan and his team to work with our local utility company to help get that on there. The cleaning on the remaining part of the building has been completed. And they are demobilized. They've left some air filters just for reconstruction parts of that. So that part has been done. They will probably come back a few days right before the start of school to do a final cleaning, as there might be some dust, that might creep in there. And so they've allowed some time there. As you know, there's a couple projects that we're watching really closely. One is to sprinkle, to put sprinkler systems into that E-building and the auditorium. And that contractor has started and is making good progress. And there was one added thing that we're working on getting that approved, but we're still feel comfortable that should be done before school. What we're watching now closely, now that the cleaning done, is, well, no, I should say that the investigation, the insurance investigation is still ongoing. It has narrowed its scope into specific areas, but until it's all the way done, we can't have access to that. And so we're working on that front to at least get that wrapped up as soon as we can. Since they have narrowed that scope, we can get in there and start abating. So that Terracon abatement has started to come, basically sifting, through the ashes to remove any or the identified asbestos, because that has to be done before and cleared before the demo starts. The demo also really needs full access, just for liability, for safety reasons. We don't want anybody in there at all. Again, they're scheduled, it'll take about 3 weeks. So as we stack these things up and overlap where we can, it will be down to the day 2 or 3.
So not just the damaged part, anywhere in the school. So the other side of the buildings, the class, no one can go in any of those areas either?
Until the sprinkler's there.
Well, we won't receive occupancy until the sprinkler's there.
So,
Could the administration?
That's what I'm
be in
wondering,
there?
administration or any teachers that
Yes,
needed to get
I
their rooms?
mean, we need to check with our building officials, but I believe that would be possible. But again, our goal is before the August 16th to be done.
Gotcha.
so will they be able to work on that small gym, that little gym?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Excellent.
didn't have to be
But
sorry.
yes, excellent,
There you go.
excellent question there. So there will be some working there. It's really, we just can't, where they're narrowing that investigation, we just can't have investigators in wherever that, again, I know where it's at, but it's in that, but they just can't be in that damaged area where they're trying to tear down the beams over
Sure.
the top.
Sure.
Small gym, they should be able to, because again, that should be protected.
Right.
As an update for there, the boards are en route. We should see them the end of this week or first of next. We're trying to get a tracking number on that. The 4th of July might have delayed it a little while. But that was about kind of where we thought that would be. Again, it has to acclimate for 2 weeks, and then they anticipate maybe a 4-week install. So
That'd be close.
I don't know if we'll hit August 16th on that date, but it should be shortly thereafter, whereas initially we were saying maybe by the fall, maybe by basketball season, but it looks like it, obviously we'll try to push it as soon as we can. If we line those dates up, it could be the first part of September.
Okay.
Okay? The front lockers, unrelated, but since we have the opportunity, we want to take as much opportunity we can for this building. We have removed all the front foyer lockers. Well, Paul Davis have. They've been removed. Now we're working on the tiling underneath and make them look good. And one thing we are also doing, Dr. Howell really wanted to make sure that we, did some painting. So our crews actually have started mobilizing today, actually. Now that the cleaning's done, to get in some of these classrooms and hallways and just do as much as we can.
We have a paint crew? I saw your job posting, so.
We do. So it's a fear. Well, because he's not retired yet.
Oh.
So we're gonna use him until he's all the way,
There you go.
leaves us there. So yes, we do have a paint crew there. Again, regarding the future, we still, our goal is to get some contracts in front of you July for some of these off-site locations, agreements, contracts with Calvary Chapel, with LDS Church on that, for that Princeton building. Get those in front of you to sign and review, as that, those will be crews who will kind of help to hold our different programs and different activities, for these, at least for this year and maybe future years as well. Any questions on update, anything you've heard or asked?
So I know Ms. Judy had talked to you about the Gateway building. I saw a little bit of
Yes.
questions about that,
Yeah.
the basement and the use of it as a weight room and.
Correct. So that's, thank you for that. I'll make sure I don't forget that in the future. Yes, so that's, we've met, we met with Travis, our athletic director and weights coach. We know kind of at the first sale to get them in by the 23rd of August, we'll take down this wall. Is, I think she mentioned maybe
Right.
a little bit bigger scope, and we will, do that if, as we kind of evaluate and do just as quick as we can. Taking down one wall is something that we can do, but if we're taking down all of the walls and putting up beams and pillars, that will be a little bit more extensive. Might need some drawings, some structural engineer sign off from the city.
And Travis, maybe this is a question for you, and again, I'm hearing this a little bit
Sure.
from Ms. Judy, because I know she had asked the questions, and, are any of the teams off-site at other weight areas? Are they using commercial weight areas because ours is not enough? I mean, is that,
This summer, well, at the end of the school year, we were able to use, one of our PE teachers, he has a business here in town.
mhm.
Was it BA2 athletics, so our kids were able to go there on days they weren't at Century, free of charge.
That's what I was gonna ask, is he
And
charging the
Chubbuck-
kids or us?
Chubbuck CrossFit has provided all of our programs. Coach Ackley and Coach Collins have been over there the entire summer and running programs free of charge at Kulak CrossFit right now, so pretty incredible facility there. It's,
Is that something that will be available when school starts, or is that just a summer
it
thing?
could be available when school starts, but we're back to the transportation issue.
Right,
So
well, and
it's not-
is liability a concern? I would, if it's an off-site place too.
Exactly, that's,
So, but we met with Jenna, and I met with the entire PE department this last week out there. We're planning on putting a teacher up above, a teacher that teaches yoga and health. Seems like that, excuse me, would work. And then the weight training, it is gonna be, a small facility, even with the wall, but with the good weather, we're gonna utilize some outside. Our coaches feel like we can make it work. Yeah, it's not a weight, like the weight room, or just like our choir kids are gonna be in the basement of Calvary Chapel. And so, but right now, we think we can make it work for the time being.
Okay.
That's another reason we wanna, as Ms. Wilcox said last time, the sooner we can get back, the sooner we can get something built, the better off. Our kids are displaced, and that's just how it is right now, but we've been very blessed with the community. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. I agree, yeah.
so we should be able to start that on next week to get at least, the space there at Gateway, be able to, to house that, and then at least to start with, and then, evaluate.
Okay, thank you.
So, again, some future projects, the second part of what Dr. Howell wanted me to talk about. These are some future projects. Some of them I would love and really need to do next year, meaning a year from now. Some of them would require, all require your input. Some will come community input. But this is the list that we just had briefly talked about in our capital improvement. Specifically starting at least with Highland. We talked about a Highland team room, like that is being built at the other two high schools. We did put on the list the Highland Auditorium. And then we had been, or it was scheduled to look at parking, for this year, but obviously this would be something as future as well regarding Highland. But some other projects we had just put out there was upgrade to the Century Gymnasium out there, Century Turf for their football field. We did, on the list is a district swimming pool. We did put a list on there for an Idaho expansion or / rebuild. And then we put on a new elementary school. Again, this is just one little simple list that would require a lot of time to get through there. The Franklin track, maybe more immediate needs there. And then the last one is our Lincoln Elementary, regarding an ADA entry. That was a need that has been identified, and rightfully so. You have to go up and downstairs to even get into the building. And so
Or around the back.
Or, yes, or around the back, thank you for that. In the front of the building, you have to go upstairs and downstairs, or you have to go through the back door, to get that.
Isn't that the
and
same
then-
also at Washington? Isn't Washington have a similar ADA issues? Or are there a way in there other than the stairs?
There's similar issues there, we're actually working on some ADA things.
Sure. And by no means is this an extensive
Exhaustive,
list.
of course.
Because yes, absolutely, Washington, yeah, would be there. And then I even put down, this was before we bought the Allstate building, I put welding, construction, first responders, building, just knowing.
You got that.
We did, so we got that there. So, again, those were just some of the things we talked about. Shoot, this was in October, November. Not an extensive list, but just just wanted to let you know, we're kind of, looking towards the future there of some of the needs that we do.
So one other question, you said Century Turf. Isn't that one of these lookout turfs anyway?
Correct, it's
It's
just.
just the planning of it.
Yeah, that's one that I would love to be able to do, next year.
Okay,
And so, but it wasn't on our capital improvement for this year, I just wanted to, again, let the committee know, hey, these are some things that we need to look at. Some of them, a couple of them would be for next year, some of them, of course, would be, a few years down the road.
right,
If the community, the board, felt it necessary.
right.
What are you talking about, a team room, Jonathan?
So
up there?
these are, it's basically like we call it a team room, it's basically a locker room without the lockers.
Okay, up-
Somewhere for them to go at halftime.
Okay, all right,
Concessions and restrooms.
just,
Yes, thank you, so that's the team room.
Yeah.
Again, we finished over there at Lookout Field for Pocatello High School.
Right.
It's there on
Okay.
the northwest side.
Yeah.
Concessions, concessions and bathrooms. Over there on the east side of Century, they've started that,
Yeah.
and are making progress. It's just, we would need one at Highland, maybe a modified version. Of course, they have some restrooms and some concession, up above the field.
And Gateway is actually gonna be used as that type of facility this year as well. If we could get that football stadium figured out.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, that's, the Gateway building might be
Okay.
able to be incorporated into that, and you'll be able to save some money, but we'll kind of evaluate that, next fall.
So the other question I had, so Century Gym, I know the issue is it's small.
Correct, and
And
that's
so
as
is
far as
that-
it would go.
Is that something that you think it has to be torn down to be rebuilt, or can you modify what's there?
Yes, forgive me, I don't know. Yeah,
Okay, I mean, I know
and
that's a big.
That's where we would
it's a-
gather our team, we'd gather a team, I know they need, the wrestling room is really small. Yeah, would it be more feasible to upgrade the existing building, or would it be to add on a larger size building? Again, other than, we know it's small, that's the only, as far as we've gotten.
Right, okay. Not an athletic person, so I
Sure,
didn't know what,
sure.
it always seemed adequate for when I was there,
You
but.
got it. It's
To
just
watch
the same
games,
thing.
but-
Oh, their full student body just barely
Doesn't
or,
fit.
yeah, it doesn't fit.
Okay, one item that I failed to mention today, that as Jonathan was talking, is our architects from Design West and Bateman Hall, our construction management team, are both here, and we wanted to give the board an idea of timeline and costs. I know as we were interviewing various teams, we may have touched on it but we didn't really talk about it, anything with definite terms. And I don't even know that it's definite or concrete, so to speak, today. But I would like for them, we've asked them to prepare for you some idea of timeline and costs of what they may be thinking as we're projecting forward again. That will help you with your decision. And once again, too, as you have questions, please feel free to ask them. If you jot them down and want to ask them later or in a subsequent meeting, but we'd be happy to do our best to help you through this, just as we are. So we'll touch on that. Maybe this is even the time to do that, or, because we've been talking mostly, construction and projects, I think that may be a better fit before we work into this other part of the discussion with Sue and AJ.
So I guess Mike has kind of prepared, you know, some of the options that we talked about. The board talked about. We just kind of wanted to, as Dr. Howell mentioned, some kind of cost and timeline. So, Mike, do you want to kind of start that discussion and then kind of?
Constant timeline and concrete, I'm not sure those are.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Where we're hovering right now.
Yeah, right, you know, slush, slug, whatever, yeah.
Well, maybe the best place to start is we left last week's meeting and just kind of took some notes on what we were hearing as some options that you guys were turning over and just looking at. So, of course, this is gonna need to be narrow, but some of the things that we heard were, first and foremost was rebuild Highland High School. So a couple options for that, there's 7 different ones here. One was, just Highland alone, was to replace the existing cafeteria gymnasium areas. B was demo the BOAG and wrestling area and replace it along with the cafeteria gymnasium. Option 1C was, complete A or B with additional space to try to get to 2,200 students. So D would be, add on the auditorium area for band and choir and maybe some additional auditorium space. 1E was demo auditorium area and build a bigger new auditorium wing. Option. F and G have to do with the parking, so F was increased parking by using green space around the high school. G was increased parking by purchasing lot near high school. With that being possibly rerouting the road to take in that new parking area, or that space could be used for a separate district-wide auditorium building that would allow you to repurpose parking around the remodel as well, which could incorporate any of the A, B, C, or D above too. So that was all the options associated with Highland High School. You know, as far as cost or schedule, it would kind of depend on what that would look like, once you guys start narrowing down on what that may be. But, you know, we do have some pricing that we've used recently for, both the Fremont School District and the Shelley School District when it comes to new high schools or additions and things like that. We'd be more than happy to share with you. As far as a new high school, you're probably looking at 1 year to design and probably 2 years to build, typically. Remodels kind of depend on how they're gonna be phased. If we have complete access to a wing that's going to minimize impact on the school, you could probably shave months off of your new school build because you don't have the site infrastructure that you typically have with a new building. And, as long as you're free to go on that, you might be able to shave like 4 months. Let's say if we were to do the gymnasium cafeteria wing, 20 months might be appropriate for that too. I think that's plus or minus a couple of months, just depending on how things shake out in the design and what kind of phasing we want to do on that to minimize it too. The auditorium would fall in that same time frame too, because it's basically building out. So there's smaller or bigger, the time frame tends to be the same when you're trying to minimize the impact on the school district too.
Mike, can you share kind of price
Yeah.
per square foot as
So-
well on?
Sure, so we just priced up a couple of gymnasiums, and, you know, a full gymnasium is running around the 30,000 square feet, which I think your guys's might be a little bigger than that. We haven't got the actual square footages of the existing facility to know for sure, but just kind of roughly looking at it, looks like you guys might be slightly larger than that, but, those are running about $475 a square foot. If you go smaller into an auxiliary gym, you because of the smaller size, it actually tends to go up in price a little bit from that. Until you hit a really smaller gym, say like 16,000 square foot or less, and then just because of what you end up putting into them, they tend to drop in their cost per square foot. So if you're looking at, let's say 68,000 square feet on this north end, because you're also gonna have some classrooms, the gymnasium space, and then the cafeteria, which cafeteria tends to be higher than your average classroom costing per square foot too. We figured probably about $465 a square foot times that 68,000, so that would put you at 31.6 million for that.
Rebuilding.
The rebuild. Roughly, and again, 30,000 square foot, we don't have the actual building footprint, and nor are we sure how much demo's gonna be left, nor any additional classrooms or anything like that.
Does this doesn't include the demo? This is just
Just the rebuild.
the rebuild, right?
And that was the way it is now, or that is?
Similar to what it is now.
Yeah, that number would work
That
if
square footage.
it got bigger or smaller too. Those are just kind of a rough number to get you guys to a decision making.
So this is not the build to increase to 2,200 or the auditorium. This
You
is
could use that
literally,
number, but more than likely, you'd end up increasing your classroom space. And so that cost per square foot, that's some of the cheaper
Yeah.
space that you could
Sure.
put in a school. So it's gonna come down.
Yeah, to clarify, the number you're saying that you could use is the 465 per square foot number.
Gotcha.
Right, not 31.6, 31.6.
Yeah.
Adjust accordingly.
And as you grow and start adding classrooms, you're probably gonna shrink closer to that 450, which
Mhm.
right now for brand new high school, 450 is holding pretty true. 400 per square
Yeah.
foot. And that includes site development and utilities too.
Does that also include like your equipment, your FF&E?
It does.
Okay.
And there's numbers in that you guys control, such as FF&E. and
What is
IT
FF&E?
requirements.
Furniture, fixture, and equipment,
hey,
sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
Like, is that fire?
Yeah, no, furniture, tip
Okay.
the building upside down, anything that falls out,
Gotcha.
that's what they always say. Anything that falls out if the building's upside down, that's furniture, fixture, and equipment.
Okay.
It could be 15% of this, but so, I mean, cause it
Yeah.
just adds up.
As we progress, as we start getting more into the details, that's something we would sit down with administration and go through. Because maybe you guys got a stockpile of stuff that's sitting somewhere that could be used in this. And you don't have to buy new, so that number can start coming down. So it's the same for IT too. So what you're gonna do for, your internet, televisions, security, that kind of stuff. You guys kind of control that by how much you want to spend there, how little you want to spend there, how much you already have, how much you can do in-house. So I have good safe numbers now that are gonna cover you for when we get there, but those numbers can be reduced as we work through the details too. And that comes as part of this process as you guys do.
So a question, with the insurance company, do they look at these kind of numbers, or do they come up with their own numbers?
So they will, Mike and Shay and Bateman Hall, they'll actually help us get quotes, and that will help establish what they're going to give us back. It'll be the same that was there, but it will be current market. That's where we're covered, fully insured, because they're gonna pay us what it would cost to put it back, as is. And then Bateman Hall mentioned that they would help us get some of these quotes to help establish that insurance price. And then anything above that, bigger, more, would be
Oh,
on the
nice.
district, through the community, through
Right.
a bond or something.
So that's what we heard with high school. There is another option for that. We'll skip option 2 and go to 3, which was a new high school on new acreage to, the 450 would probably work for that, unless you guys had a lot of off-site improvements that the city wanted you to do, like roadway improvements, traffic lights, bringing utilities along ways to get to the site. That wouldn't be included in that 450, but that would kind of give you guys a ballpark to know what it is you want. And a new high school in this range, you're probably gonna be 230, maybe 240, maybe even as big as 250,000 square feet. To be able to get to 2,200 students. You guys are doing great right now with a 200,000 square foot building and running 1,700 into it. That's pretty amazing. So option 2 that I skipped over was to change Highland High School to a middle school. So it's basically, replacing the cafeteria gymnasium with you'd have to go a larger cafeteria kitchen and and you could go a smaller gymnasium for a middle school. And then in the same thing as 1B, you could demo the wagon wrestling room and add that to the cafeteria and the smaller gymnasium too. So those are the 2 options we heard to change it to a middle school. A middle school tends to run a little less dollars per square foot, but not a whole lot. Probably shave maybe $20 a square foot off of that and feel good about that moving forward. Option 4 that we heard was kind of various remodels and additions to some older elementary schools and middle schools as deemed necessary by a facility review that was gonna be conducted too. And again, these are what we heard, so that maybe we can hear correctly, but 5th option was a mega school and combining schools and maybe demoing some of the older and selling those properties or repurposing them to other things too. But combining and give it to a 700+ student elementary school, which sounds to us like you might be able to combine 3 elementary schools to get that done. The 6th item was the potential for a district field house. And believe it or not, we have priced out some of those in the last couple of years too, so we do have some numbers on that. A most recent one, Preston is looking at a 50,000 square foot one that with what they want in it, they're about $161 per square foot, which is just a metal building field house. Those options can run anywhere from about $150 to $200 per square foot, and what really becomes a factor in that is how extensive of a mechanical system you want in it, your HVAC, how many overhead roll-up doors to open out outside area you're gonna use, restrooms, locker rooms, all just start adding the cost, but you can put tennis rooms in it, that kind of stuff. So that's why it's such a big range, is because it's really, until we know what you would want in it. But, I mean, you could practically do a metal building and be as low as maybe $150 a square foot and get 50,000 square foot usable space too. So, and then the final one,
What's the size of that, Preston?
they went 49.5.
Just under 50,000.
Yeah.
Do you know the dimensions? Like,
I got a picture up here. I'll show it to you as we're talking here. So, the last one was district participation in a swimming pool. Now having pricing on them.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some variables there too, right? So, any questions on any of that? Did I miss anything, Shay?
I guess the auditorium, you didn't talk much about the specifics of an auditorium.
Yeah, so, the latest one both Shelley and Fremont had us price up some stuff for them. So these are pretty current. Fremont is looking to add a 28,000 square foot, attached auditorium, so it'd be 3 sides attached to their existing school up there. And 28,000, that's a pretty healthy auditorium, that's pretty good size. They were gonna go $999 on seats with it. And they were $557 a square foot on it. So that was about a $15.7 million addition. So that's, you could round that up and say 16 million for 30,000 square feet, $999. But that had really nice staging areas and change rooms and things like that leading up to it. They had a nice piece where they could actually build props in a room too, next to it. Things like that they weren't holding back. They wanted a really nice auditorium up there, so.
where was
Yes.
that? Where was that?
This would be in South Fremont. So you might be able to cheapen that up depending on what you're able to repurpose or reuse on the existing one too. You might be able to repurpose some of that to take care of like some of that prop room, changing rooms, things like that too. Figure out a way to build this to where maybe we flip it in the stages, reverse to where some of that stuff comes into play. So I would say that 557's on the high end, and, you know, you might be able to reduce that from there, clean down to maybe $450 a square foot, just depending on how extensive and nice you really want to make it.
So this is a new build versus demo and remodel the existing wing.
Yeah, that was a new add-on.
That's just a new,
In addition to that, if you were gonna demo the existing, that would be additional cost to this too.
sure,
Comparatively, as you
So-
know, it's easier to take something
sure,
down.
yep.
So what's the seating there right now?
Really, that small?
What's Century's, do you know?
Freshman class in it.
What's Century's auditorium?
About 600.
About 600? And it's still small.
650.
Yeah.
We do band concerts and choir concerts in the gym.
Yeah. Right.
Can't do it. So what is that space used for?
For theater program.
Theater programs? Can the choir not use that? Just out of curiosity, can they not, if they were to reverse and have the kids sitting in the auditorium for choir class? Is that as opposed to going to the basement of Calvary?
Yeah,
I know
yes, but our drama department is in there as well
Yeah,
at the same time.
So would a 9 or 1,000 student auditorium be adequate for us, or do we want to go bigger than that?
And again, your cost would be probably even more per square foot if you go above 1,000,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, what happens,
This is
and I'm probably gonna steal their thunder here, but usually what you do is to maintain good sight angles on the stage, you end up with a balcony, and with a balcony comes
Sure.
elevators and stairs
Sure.
and, additional height. So your cost per square foot goes,
Way up.
actually, it doesn't go up, it's just additional square footage that you have to pay for just to get to that additional seating.
Mhm.
As far as because you're building vertical, there is some cost savings there, but usually the elevator is the big kicker. You're $150,000 for this type of elevator, that's the real kick of the shorts for the additional seating.
Choir concerts and band concerts, that's plenty big. And the gym we use 1/2.
For 1,000 seats is enough.
And that's like David said, that's what schools that are in our conference, or, Rigby and Thunder Ridge, it's, are the sort of size. Rexburg and Madison.
Not, because of the additional costs associated with it, there's not many districts who go above the 999.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. So who's got the checkbook?
I thought it was you.
Anything
Same.
else from our gentleman here from Design West, our architect?
No, I would just add, we talked a little bit last time about doing I think it was like a full facility evaluation for the schools. Absolutely would love to do that, but, it's expensive. I think if you're looking at numbers, you could plug in just an average number of about $15,000 per school. Obviously, that would be, that would range from anywhere from 5,000 for a small school to 30,000, 40 for a high school. But 15,000 per school would probably be a pretty good number, because you're paying for structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, and architects.
You said 3-4 months on that last time?
Yeah, to do the full, district, probably about 3 months, yeah.
But isn't that contingent on the number of schools,
It is.
any buildings?
But if you wanted us to do every school in the district,
Yeah.
it would take that long. So I think somebody said you have, 28?
20?
I'm assuming you would need to do all of them, and you could do as few as you wanted. If there were schools you wanted to prioritize, and ones you actually wanted in the evaluation, others you didn't, then we'd obviously give you some kind of structure to do that.
Sure.
To the design.
We also talked with Alan afterward and said, is there a hybrid that we could do that? He knows the facilities well enough that maybe there's things that he knows, it's this one, we know everything's going on here, we could lessen that opportunity, but put that into the report. So that could lessen the cost of doing that as well.
Mhm.
So there's some hybrid things that we could do, working with the school district, to make that cost effective, shall we say, and still get you the information, enough information to make those critical decisions like
saying no. Again, so I'm looking at a middle of September and backing that up for this board to be able to make a decision. Enough time. I think for us to be able to communicate with our community, I wanted to say advertise, that is the wrong word, completely the wrong word. But to share information and communicate with our public, even prior to September is important, but certainly after that date until the November election is even more important. But again, the timing here is, in my opinion, if we're looking at September, that's why we need to keep having this open dialogue with the board and our community members' opportunities to speak. But we need to make advancements in every meeting toward that goal, if it is your goal, to have that for September or for March. As we've heard, we already know that it's a year design and 2 years on the build for the new one, is that? Yeah, so that's 3 years, give or take a couple of months, again, is what I thought I heard today.
What did you, I don't know if we talked to time frame. Oh, no, you did, 20 months on the demo, kind of rebuild, remodel? Does that include the design as well?
1 year for design, 20.
So still 1 year design, okay.
Which is not, if you do the build, you have to come in and do the evaluation for connecting to mechanical
Sure.
systems, electrical systems. You have to do that evaluation on the existing to build onto and make sure we're connecting everything to it.
Right.
So there's some evaluation and exploratories that we need to look at and go through.
Right.
We're gonna have to do that no matter what we do with that building, though, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah,
it.
so it's,
I mean,
we're
I-
looking
we
at
can't
2 to
just
3 years
leave the
anyway.
building like
And
it
that's-
is. And
Yeah, and then for the way of timing, as soon as we demo that, and that's where I'm gonna ask, our
Right.
team here to start that, so whatever option,
Right.
happens to that existing Highland building, we'll have those and try to narrow down that, or start that clock of, just to do as quickly as we can.
Design time.
Yeah, design time.
Jonathan, I have a question about insurance.
Yes.
So is there any way that the insurance could come back and say that the district is at fault because we didn't meet certain codes?
Excellent question. Sorry, go ahead.
And then they would deny coverage.
Excellent question, but the answer is no. There is no way that they would do that. It's the same as like if you were in an automobile, or if I was in an automobile accident and it was my fault, my insurance is still gonna cover my vehicle. And we've asked that pointed question with them. They will cover this replacement no matter what. But I will reiterate that it is not the district's fault. It is still ruled accidental, and that's even this ongoing investigation is still that same vein there. Did I answer your question okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Watson, Ms. Pinnick will talk to the board. Again, this is a handout for you in your agenda, and walk you through some different options for the questions we received last week.
So just in regards, there was some options for consideration, you're looking for some things with elementary and even possibly middle school. So we just put together some items, maybe 3 options on here based on what was discussed, plus an additional idea for you to look at as you make your decision. I won't go through all of the points on here, you have it in your packet, but I'll just briefly highlight through some of these, and then any questions you can ask Sue and I. First one, Highland High School, combining that, and making it a large elementary school. You could combine Gate City and Idaho. It would be a fairly large elementary school, probably around 800. That would alleviate some of the overcrowding we currently have up there in those boundary areas. The current space, without any addition, would work for Highland. There would have to be some conversion of some of the space, or an addition of a cafeteria space or kitchen, so you need a pretty large space with that many elementary learners to be able to do lunch or their activity It would have a fairly minimal impact on elementary school boundaries. It would really just affect those two schools in that area there. You'd have to consider vacating Idaho and Gate City and what would happen to those school buildings and those school grounds, what that would look like. And then it could also be a location. We have a number of special education ERR programs that we have throughout the district.
OCRR.
Extended resource room.
Okay.
Our special education programs, and we have them split, most of them now, where they're K2 or 3-5, different areas. We could look at consolidating a number of those. Transportation would kind of play a role in that, because a lot of them have special transportation and our bus, so we'd have to look at busing and the number of buses, and that could play a role, but it would give us a location where they could stay instead of having to split schools and go somewhere for K2 and then 3-5. They could all be one location. So that's just, these are just things that we've discussed as possible options so that you have that information.
So can I ask you questions on?
What do you think about that number of students in a school?
In elementary school?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like,
It's
that's
a lot.
huge.
We've had up to 600 before in an elementary school. When our schools were larger, Wilcox, Indian Hills, usually you get close to 600, but it is a large element. It would require 2 administrators. We would combine the staff. I mean, it would look different than our other elementary schools do right now, but with the space, it would be definitely a possibility to consider.
So the couple questions that
Yes.
has popped up for me, because I know one of the things we talked about, if this were the decision, is that the high school, I mean, the football would still be used there, that, I mean, it would still be quasi-football, or excuse me, high school property as well. And is that a concern? And with high school kids that would show up there for football practice or baseball or whatever amongst
As I'm
the,
thinking, most of the time, the elementary schools would be.
They're
finished. We
out.
don't have a lot of their hours would be done before the high school.
Okay,
Students were up there practicing. They would probably have a separate room, location. I mean, based on where everything's at, I don't know that there would be a lot of direct interaction with high school kids and elementary.
Baseball would probably be the only, because baseball can start at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock. In the springtime, baseball
could be a, okay. The other question I then had was, and maybe this is more for Janelle, but, and help me understand that, you know, with some of these, the SPED programs, I mean, isn't the point that they have to be integrated? And so if you now focus them all into one school, is that gonna create an issue? Come on down.
Is it gonna what?
Well, I don't know if it's an issue, or does that, you know, so that it's not discriminatory, you know, by putting, pooling them?
As long as there's still, your general education population, it would be sufficient to do the mainstreaming and make sure that that
Okay.
nutrition was still being followed by IDEA regulations.
Right, okay, perfect. And then I guess the other question is, you know, again, new on the board, new on this whole experience. How do other, I mean, I know the school, was it the CREAC school? I mean, I'm sure the neighbors love that building because of what's happened to it. So what typically happens to schools that, other than what's happened to that building? I mean, is that what we're looking at? I mean, you know, that, I guess it just gets sold and then that just becomes whoever buys it, but I mean,
Yes, and as I mentioned at our meeting last week with the Bonneville property, the district sat on that for quite
For
a
a long
while.
time.
And then, again, between the demolition, in the sense, it was a bit of a donation on behalf of the district, working with a community partner, because the amount received for that was not substantial.
right.
And when we look at some of these other numbers, when we're hearing $450 a square foot, the money that we might receive on those would.
Drop in the
Minimum.
bucket. Where is the Bonneville building? I don't know where that is.
Bonneville was between
8th and 9th.
8th and
8th and
9th.
9th. We had this conversation last week.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
Yeah, just this side of Clark Street,
Right.
north side of Clark Street.
About 3 blocks this side blocks.
Mhm.
I guess I'm thinking if it's the Tendoy or Idaho, those are pretty commercially popular, viable properties that may or may not be, I don't know. Now, I'm not a realtor either, so, you know, I don't know what property. But anyway, okay, thank you, keep going.
Okay.
Unless you have any questions.
Since playgrounds are under maintenance, and that's, again, so you'd have to.
Oh, yeah, Highland doesn't
Exactly.
have a
lot of the
playground.
green space, the football practices, or the parking lot would have to be torn up for a pretty big playground.
Playground, yeah.
Because that's a requirement as well, so.
That wasn't on the list here.
Well, no,
We need-
that was my-
Let's add that to the
was my-
list.
Yeah, just my thoughts there. No, you.
Right,
you are-
no, that's-
It is under maintenance, so that's right. So that's
Good point.
part of that.
Okay, Alameda Middle School, this would be a little bit more in terms of shifting enrollment areas. As we talked about Washington a little bit, this Antendoy, Washington could possibly shift boundary area. This is just looking at the map and just a general overview of ideas. But Washington enrollment area could shift to Green Acres and Tendoy. We'll be able to combine at Alameda. You'd move a portion of Idaho's enrollment area at Alameda, and also a portion of Gate City enrollment area to Idaho. It would be about 700 probably, give or take. A few that would allow us to move out of the Washington building, that alleviate a little bit of overcrowding at Gate City and Idaho, and the current Alameda facility and grounds would be adequate. One of the things you'd have to consider, a couple of things you'd have to consider, same thing with the vacated Washington building. This would be a pretty large scale enrollment area change for elementary. It would involve several schools, in terms of changing their enrollment areas. You'd lose the neighborhood schools, and we'd have a number of elementary schools kind of consolidated in one. You have Lewis and Clark right there across the track, and it would combine a number of elementary schools in one area, which would probably lead to some transportation concerns as well, busing all to one area, what that might look like. But
How big is Lewis and Clark? How many kids are there?
Lewis and Clark's about 4, if I remember correctly, right around there.
It would also affect
And then
3 of the 4 middle school enrollment areas.
Oh, yeah.
You move Alameda up, I mean, those kids may go to Franklin kids would go here, Hawthorne kids would go here, Alameda kids would go, I mean, it's
Right.
major enrollment area
Yep.
changes,
Mhm. Which,
which some of you.
Yeah, some of you
oh,
have
yes.
before.
Uh-huh. You'd be
Any
ready to
questions
take them
about
with them.
that option? And then the last one, just another one to consider, we've talked about this a little bit, but Idaho Elementary, in addition, with Idaho and building a large elementary school, or adding on to build a large elementary school there, you could combine Idaho and Tendoy into one school and include an enrollment area change at Gate City. You'd be looking at 700 plus in terms of an elementary school size. This would help with overcrowding in Gate City and Idaho. We do have that space and land available to be home there. It would be pretty minimal in terms of impact on the enrollment areas. Some things to concern, or areas to consider. You're looking at the cost associated with the new additions and any upgrades for the current. I think there would probably have to be some upgrades for the current Idaho building as well if we looked at doing that. Use of a vacated Tendoy building, and then you can also possibly look at some additional shifting to Green Acres and Washington's enrollment area, and possibly even vacating the Washington building, depending on how large you make that elementary and what those enrollment areas look like. So some things to consider with that option as well.
We've already been approached about buying, having somebody wanted to buy part of that Tendoy anyway, right? Haven't we been approached about buying some of that land at Tendoy?
Tendoy or?
Tendoy or Idaho?
Yeah.
I am not, I don't know.
Nothing
I thought
official,
that-
not even, no one's talked to me about it. They just, I think it's just an assumption, as we mentioned, hey, this is a
No,
nice.
I thought it was Tendoy that they wanted to buy, take those, and that the city wanted to get, or
Right there on the corner?
take for that intersection there. No?
Alan, have you heard anything of that nature? No.
Okay.
We haven't.
How much property is there at Idaho?
How many what?
You know, 20? I think.
20 acres, isn't it?
22.
It goes, it's deep.
Yeah.
It's a very big, 2 slots rectangle.
I think it's 18, if I remember.
Okay, yep.
Any more information on the I'm jumping around a little bit here, but the property across from Highland?
Mr. Balls and I are in the process of reestablishing that communication. Again, we met with them, Mr. Balls did, 3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago, they were in town.
Yep.
Fine, and
So
had a good
we're,
chat.
again, just
Keeping the lines open.
continue to do that, yeah.
If I may, so one, and then this is what Larry had mentioned from Design West. Again, the maintenance side of things, again, if you combine, there is maybe some maintenance savings combining on a bigger school, you know, because you kind of alleviate, if you can find, there is some, I don't know how to necessarily, you know, quantify that, but there would be some maintenance savings, you know, taking two and putting into a, you know, one larger one.
So kind of
So
along
then-
those same lines, because this
I don't know
also.
how much impact, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, this kind of goes along those same lines, whether it be Idaho or Highland, is, and this is the brilliance of the four of you gentlemen, is how do you integrate this newer school with the older school so that you don't have this huge, on the same, you know, where you, I don't know if I'm making sense, but you have this very modern new side of the building with another side that still has issues. And I guess we don't even touch the rest of the building. I mean, is that also not part of what we would be considering if
And
we
that's,
do?
it's all obviously desires of the board and money, unfortunately, it's
Right.
all about money, sorry with me. And so it's just the cost and, you know, it's important to have it upgraded, but yeah, there'll always be a new side of the building, you know, we have that at Pocatello High School, right? Kind of
Right.
the new version, the new and versus the old.
Yeah,
There's
there's really
several
no way to
schools,
get it.
there's several
get away from
schools
that.
that have done that.
Are there?
Utah's doing that quite a bit. Boise High School is a good example of schools that have Pokey.
We just got through doing one at Wasatch Elementary School in Ogden City School
Mhm.
District. They've got the same thing, they've got declining, some declining here and there. And they looked at the cost analysis of building one school, combining and tearing down the other two schools and bringing them together.
Mhm.
We did a remodel of the existing, and we put on a new addition, and we specifically tailored it. We took some of the vocabulary, architectural vocabulary of that school and brought it into it, and made it to work to it in the future. Now, what we also looked at is the new wing, was 75 years older than, the new wing is new, and then, of course, the old wing was 75 years older, so we put a couple $1 million into it to give it some more life, expectancy, but the newer wing, we made it to where it could be, tear this down and do an addition onto it and bring it up to code,
Mhm.
things of that nature. There are ways that we can use some creative opportunities there.
Have you thought any more about the parking issues up there? I mean, that to me is the one thing that just hovers over, I mean, have you thought of the creative ways of what, I don't know. I mean, to focus
I
on,
think and I'm no expert, but I think the only way to fix the parking would be to have the land in front of Highland.
Increase
I
the
think we
parking.
talked about, we could have, with an auditorium even built there, 400 to 500 parking spots,
Mhm.
which
You
is.
could add a handful here and there the way it is, but not anything substantial.
right, right.
Travis, have you guys ever thought about limiting the number of cars that come up there?
The issue
You
that we
can't
come
do that.
across with that is you have to have somebody that can monitor that, right? We can say we're only selling this many parking passes, but then you have to have someone every day out there.
I mean, could you,
issuing tickets, or do you know what I mean? We just don't have that manpower.
no, I was wondering, like, you could say seniors, only seniors could have.
But then you've got to have the buses.
But again, they'll come park there regardless, and so unless we have somebody monitoring,
Yeah.
there's just no way to.
West Data School District does that, Meridian, Rocky Mountain, Mountain View, they all have 2 full-time security guys.
You need the parking gate, right? You have the
But
pass.
they do not allow freshmen are not allowed
Sure.
to park on the grounds. And what are those, Brad, aren't those schools about 2,200?
Well, I can see the problem with that is you got kids that are playing sports or after-school activities, and they really need to be able to drive anyway, so. I
Well,
guess
then
you got
what does
parents
it
that come
do to
pick
the
them up, but
neighborhoods?
that's kind of a pain.
Who monitors the parking in the neighborhoods? I mean, we then,
Hmm.
For us, there's not really any neighborhood, so that hasn't really been an issue.
right.
I think if you pick up the 500 spots we think we can get, that's more than adequate, because that's pretty much what you're adding. Opposed to-
The other thing that was intriguing to me last time that we addressed a little bit was that parking lot, and then working with the city to take over that whole road that comes into that. And then you could really begin to look and do a master plan of the site.
Right, because it's not a
If that's the
thoroughfare.
case- If that's the case, can we take the auditorium, instead of doing it a detached, maybe we can attach it to the high school and do a three-sided.
Mhm.
There are just some options that we can begin to look at and decipher and work through for the best approach to these issues that are critical.
I think it's just gonna, get them where we can. Obviously now the Gateway is available to Highland, you know, they're a hand, not very much. It's, you know, but at least it's a couple dozen, maybe at the Gateway, and then they would have to walk, maybe that'd be some sophomores there. And that's what we were planning before the Highland Fire was, you know, 35 here, take the little triangle out there before it drops down off the hill to the east, you know, add 30 there. It's definitely a concern, and then, of course, we always will pursue all options that we can.
I mean, the one thing that just kind of keeps coming back to me, that if we want the bond to be appealing to the entire community, is we need to take into consideration some of these other issues, you know, and whether that includes, you know, enhancing Eat a House so we can eliminate the elementary crowding issue that's happening, and whether it means we take a closer look and get that Century Gym, so that we can get the buy-in from the full community. I mean, I don't know if that's how it's normally done, but, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what needs to happen next. I mean, we can't talk about this separately, so the room has to be full.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm thinking, and I know most Deanna, Angie, I don't know if you want to chime in. I think it's killing Deanna not to be here. She's texted once or twice.
So this Eat a House option that you have on here,
Can I say something?
sure, go ahead.
Sorry, I agree with Heather. I feel like we're kind of stuck until we just put it out there and say, okay, these are the options. What is the community going to support? Because we really can't do any, because even if we decide to update Highland and add on, we still have to have a bond for that.
Mhm.
And if we are able to buy the property from, that's across from Highland, how much more is that gonna, you know, cost us? Because we tried to buy it from them before, and now are they gonna make it even more expensive? Because they know we're in a bind. I don't know, I just kind of feel like we can't make a decision until we put it out there and the community says what they're gonna support. Is that what you were saying, Heather?
Yeah, I think it's just because I think this is going to be an opportunity that we need to address a couple of the big issues and not just focus on the one. Otherwise, yeah, go ahead.
On that piece of property, we've got some information that would probably be helpful here. If you guys were gonna pursue that, probably the sooner the better, because the developer is putting out bid packages on those apartments here real soon. And if it comes in and he can finance it, he's gonna proceed with building those, so that window may be closing quickly.
We got notified the day after we left there to ask for pricing on those apartments.
Yeah.
And if you think parking's bad now.
Oh, and I think if that happens, which is more likely,
You could park in the apartment parking.
yeah, I mean, it's,
That's how
People would.
And they would, probably.
oh, yeah.
So to answer, I guess if I could jump in there, again, the ultimate decision from the community is the election, right, the bond.
Right.
Before that, it would be just a survey, which you try to get as much as you can, and go from there. It's really, the other part is, okay, establish the needs, what are the needs of the district, and then we do our best to, you know, promote, hey, this is the benefits, and this is the cost, and please vote in favor.
So I know on the levy, you had to be very specific what that money is. The same for a bond? Okay,
It
that's what I
is.
assumed.
But it can be very general, even to include the entire campus, you know, land, and again, our bond council would help craft that, so we're not, you know, stuck, you know.
Well, I know one of your goals, when you said, you know, we need a financial planner and a bond council, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. We need to get some, I mean, a bond's gonna have to happen one way or the other. Am I correct in that?
Unless you just,
Unless we just rebuild what we got.
Existing site with
If there's
replacement
any-
dollars,
Yeah.
which is, I think, where Mike started back at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know, given the all the ideas that have come forward in our discussions from the board, from your conversations with the patrons and the community, it seems like that's a direction we're headed. To me, even from the results of our initial survey, and I know there are mixed reviews on that, but I do think that that gives us kind of a threshold or an entry point, and it gives us a ceiling a little bit now. Now, everything in between, I think that's what we've been able to tease out a little
Mhm.
bit in our last two meetings.
Sure.
And so, how we proceed from this point forward, could include a survey that's more detailed with some of the information that we've shared, as far as, what the district can provide, or these, options, certainly, as Mrs. Unger mentioned last week when she asked about property. I mean, being completely transparent with our financial picture, our existing properties, and so forth, and what our longer-term goals are, and just see where we're at. And so we give a lot of information and provide the survey as well.
I think that would be the,
That's something you'd like to do.
I think that would be the ideal.
Okay.
to do
And
that.
I'm also wondering, so one of the things that we did hear through the surveys, there were some people that, are we getting the reach? I mean, I know, I don't see Courtney here, but I mean, I know we went through the free options to get the survey out.
Mhm.
Do we schedule 1 or 2 town meetings just for people to come and provide some feedback? Is it ever done, I know during, when we did the levy, they did tabletops at like the chamber lunches, or, I mean, I know the board can't participate in those, but is it, I mean, I assume we can't. How is the best way to get as much feedback in the reasonably short period of time?
That's part of it, and that's why we started with that simplified
Right.
version first. We
Yep.
just needed to get an entry point and see what the interest was, because we talked about last week, 25 years since we've had a bond. Our
Right.
supplemental levies have been supported, but even that level of support hangs right around that 60 to 70% range.
Right.
Which we know for this one, we need super majority.
Right.
And so the timeline is very tight.
Pretty.
And I don't know that we could, other than when we have our public meetings to invite comment, the survey may be the best, given the timing that we do have. From September on, we could certainly go out and, communicate more
Right.
directly.
Well, and I think to Ms. Judy's point in the last meeting, in that now that we have a little more accuracy on dollars, and then being able to communicate where some of those costs will be offset, whether the bond equalization, we can best guesstimate, insurance funding, so, and again, I'm wondering if we, this was hugely helpful to me to understand where some of the other pain points are in the district. I really think, and I don't know if my fellow board members feel the same, but I think, not that I want this to be a massive project, but I think, again, in order to get more support, we've got to address some of these other pain points at the same time. Because I think going to this well, we're going to get one chance.
Right, well, for right now, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got one shot at it, or we're
Because
another
building a
year
new
away.
elementary school is, I think, going to be an even harder ask 5-10 years from now. And if that's something we need to be looking at now, and if we're going to try and make a rebuild at Highland work, then I think we need to talk about that elementary piece.
I agree.
Um,
And I was gonna ask that question with Mr. Watson. So this, when you talked about the Idaho, that would be your, if we were to rebuild Highland and build better and make it nicer, this would be your option of what you would want to see happen with that? Or would there be other options that we'd be looking at for the elementary school? And are our middle schools gonna be adequate for us down the road?
I would say that's one option, just given what we have in terms of space and where we're at right now with capacity and overcrowding. That area is definitely one that would need to be addressed, and the one where we overload the most from. We haven't done any extensive studies, but we all know there's still continued growth going on. We haven't seen a huge amount of growth in our elementary side. I mean, you can tell from the trends in the enrollment, we haven't seen a huge amount of growth in our elementary schools. So we're actually, a lot of our schools lower than we were, several years ago in terms of actual enrollment numbers.
Right.
But I guess
But-
we know that that's going to change, just given all these apartments that are coming in. We assume, I mean, I know that's a lot to assume, but,
We we typically, which is interesting, and I'll just give you my perspective from what we've seen with the apartments that have come in over the last couple of years.
No
We don't
many
see a
kids.
huge bump in our elementary numbers from apartments. We'll get usually a handful of elementary learners from those apartments. Usually they're families with younger kids or don't have kids. We don't see, and that could change based on housing and what's available, right? But we typically, even when we have some of those larger ones that have come in, Wilcox's boundary, there's been some in Chubbuck's boundary, we haven't seen a huge, we've been nervous about it, and there just hasn't been a huge increase in enrollment numbers.
And Sue, you say the same about secondary. I mean, but we also know, let's say there's this boom, something happens, these prices aren't gonna go down, right? Okay.
Afraid not.
So if we were gonna look at building a new elementary, maybe this wouldn't be the right time, but if we were, where would we build it? I mean, if you did away with Washington, you've got that whole end of town down there that doesn't have an elementary in that area, and there's really not much of a place down there to build.
What about in the land behind Franklin, in an elementary you built?
That was the original intent, for
Right.
the
Oh.
property there adjacent to Franklin.
And we could still do that? Is it, I mean, it would take a lot of landscaping, a lot of excavating to get that
It
done.
would take a little bit, yeah, but that was the primary goal for that property.
Okay,
And there's
So-
also land that we own that's out in the Chubbuck area as well.
all right. But there again, you do away with Washington, you still got, I mean, you got a huge section of town now that doesn't have an elementary school in it. And I don't know what's our enrollment, there's probably what, 300?
Small,
Yeah.
not even 250.
Yeah.
275.
So if we build a new if we build a new elementary behind Franklin, you could move some of the kids from Gate City and reposition.
Kind of do a shift a
Yep.
little bit.
Okay.
But now, we're talking about this bond starts getting bigger.
Right.
And then you start rolling the
Exactly.
dice of, so now it becomes too big to approve.
I think about utilizing what we have, building an elementary by Franklin. And then the other nice thing with Idaho, you could actually build a bigger school behind Idaho while the kids are still in Idaho.
Right.
And we own that land as well. And maybe that school takes in, how big is Tindway and
Small,
Tindway and Idaho, Kidway?
combined, maybe around 580, 600.
So you could build a school for the two of them.
Okay. I mean, those are all options, right? Okay, we'll be looking
A
at
lot of options.
a lot of options.
Who's got
Okay.
that genie bottle, the crystal ball?
Okay, on to public hearing, are we ready for that? Any more questions?
I don't know, anything else?
Do you have any more comments?
I would like to add something.
Sure.
I think it's great that we've made a decision on probably doing a bond, right? I think that's what I'm hearing, that that's.
Well,
I,
I mean,
Well, at least to get-
it's not a
Yeah,
decision, but I think we're looking at that's kind of where we're gonna head.
If that is the decision, based on my experience, and I know I don't look very old, but I really haven't been doing this a long time.
your socks keep
You
you
really
young.
have to develop, you really have to move into a phase of some kind of evaluation, where you evaluate the facility so you can identify the problems.
Mhm.
And you also, at that same time, look at operational issues, like you brought up about who goes where, what shifts we can make. So you have a facility and an operational evaluation. That gives you something to have a dialogue with the community with.
Mhm.
We've looked at these schools, these are the problems, these are some of the options. And then you can get a little further down the road towards zeroing on that bond goal. Because you don't want it too big.
Mhm.
You do want it as diverse as possible for the community, and you want to address your problems. So you gotta kind of have a problem workshop to find out what those are. And I don't think that includes necessarily evaluating every school in the district, but maybe Alan and the superintendent identify the ones that are gonna be part of the project, and that's what the team looks at.
Okay.
Well, a normal bond, you go into and kids aren't displaced, and I think Jenna brought this up last time. We have to remember, right now, we have kids displaced. So the sooner we can, not only are Highland kids displaced, but this next year, the whole community's gonna be hit. Pokey kids are gonna be displaced when we have games at Pokey, we have to find practices. Century kids are gonna be displaced when we play games at Century. And at minimum, what I'm hearing, at minimum, even if we rebuild a Highland, we're looking at 2 years.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 to 3 years. I don't
Three.
think,
Three.
I don't think regardless of what we do,
Right, I
that's
think you're
not,
right, 3 years.
not gonna go away.
Yeah.
But to add another year onto that, right, I think I said last week, you're talking about taking the 4 years that are most impactful for a kid, and they're displaced that entire time.
Where are you adding another year?
Well, they're in high school for 4 years, right? So if we're at least 3 years out, right, you're a year with design, 2 years to build, we're at least 3 years out. If we go for a bond in November and it doesn't pass, then we're looking at
I
March,
see.
and we're another year.
No,
out.
we're looking at May.
May.
Hey,
Right, we're another year out after that, and so, like I said before, whatever you guys decide, we need to be pretty certain that it's gonna go through.
Right.
Or you're looking at displacing these kids for another year, every time we fail, right? It's another year of displacement, and that's impactful.
Sure. I agree.
so I guess in your opinion, because this is the thing, do you add things that are appealing to the entire community, or do you just focus on the one area? Because I think that's where we end up losing support. I've already heard that.
Talk to that is an expert on bonding, you know, in schools, you have to appeal to the whole community.
Exactly.
But I think you've got a sweet spot where it's gonna become too expensive for anybody to think that it's gonna work. Or, you know, it's appealing to enough people that we have enough support to make it go through.
Right.
And I think that sweet spot is smaller now than it ever has been, to be honest, simply because of all of the taxing issues that we've had over the last few years in our community. I mean, whatever.
I mean, the things we have going on for us right now, the bond equalization, the insurance money, and then isn't there some property tax relief that is also supposed to be
That's
coming
continuing
down?
to, yeah.
And I know that's not long-term, I mean, that would be a very short term, because isn't it just the first year and then possibly two?
Well,
Just
we're saying
depends
up to
on,
maybe 2 or 3, but.
right.
Yes,
I
we're
would-
projecting 3 by way of what the legislature has said.
So we'll just
Right,
expect one
so-
year
So we'll,
Yeah.
and
we've heard it
be
here.
grateful for the second.
We'll be down for wood.
Right, so I mean, I also think that's part of our sweet spot, is that there will be some relief coming, so the initial shock may not
Which
be.
are all things that will need to be
Yeah.
communicated.
Oh,
you know,
right.
When we go into this, but I just think we have to be wise about where our community's gonna support and where they're not.
Yep,
So, if I may add.
So I agree with Jenna. I also agree that with Heather though, that we have so many options right now. But we do need to know what the community is going to support. And I just want to make it clear that we don't want to displace the kids. We want to get this done as quickly and them back to, you know, their schools and doing their extracurricular activities as fast as we can. Nobody expected this fire to happen, but we want to do the very best for the kids. And it breaks my heart that, you know, 3 years of their life is going to be displaced. But it's nobody's fault. So we just have to do our very best for them and pick the best plan. If
because
that makes sense.
I mean, because obviously we're talking generations now, right? It's not just this group of kids, we've got to think down the road for the future kids as well, and what's going to make.
Well, and the other thing is, if we go out for a bond, if we just went for a bond for Highland, then to do other things down the road, I mean, it'd be impossible to pass another bond to get another elementary, or to add on to Century, or to do whatever else is we're gonna need. I mean, until that bond was paid off, so we need to look at what else can we put in there without, like you say, going too far and saying, okay, well, we're not gonna get that bond. So, yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 thing, I think.
I think to complicate this just a little bit more.
Okay.
Please do.
Please do.
When we look at the direction the legislature is going, and we have come across this in the last 3 years more strongly than ever, is the voucher system.
Yeah.
And if the state the legislators get behind that, And 2 years ago, it came within 2 votes, really. I mean, it came down to that through the committee. And so when that decision is made, that will change the landscape of public education
For sure.
entirely, in my opinion.
A good point. I
So
hadn't thought about that.
I think that's something we may want to keep in the back of our minds. And when we talk about our enrollment unchanged for essentially 13 years, and as we look around the community, we've seen growth, we've also seen expansions of our charter schools. And so how will that play into or the board's decision moving forward, as well as potentially some vouchers in the future?
That's true.
So once private schools are funded, if they are, then that will have an impact on our enrollment.
Sure will.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Absolutely.
okay.
Thank
so
you.
that's, so for today, we will pursue our, the bond counsel, the financial advisor, the underwriter, that group of people, those firms that can help us do that, again, based upon our conversations. And then we will start maybe this semi-formal review. I'm thinking if we talk, Washington, Idaho, Tendoy, and Highland. Those are kind of the 4 I'm thinking. If the board has some other ideas, but again, we would have to move that right away because we don't, time is of the essence. As
Do we
know.
want to, did we want to do the survey then, Doug?
And so, and
Go
then
ahead.
a survey, I mean, we'll start to, I think if we get a fact sheet together, an FAQ, just put together everything, all the information that we possibly can. We could do at least one town meeting in there somewhere, and then provide a bigger space and do a public meeting. Then maybe the board would hear, I think what you're going to hear will be probably a third,
Right.
potentially. And so, but it's important that we hear from our community.
And I think that's the thing, is that those people that want to have an opinion and want to share it, they just need a forum to do
Sure.
so. I mean,
Yeah.
it just needs to be available.
Okay, all right. So that's the direction we'll go based on what you've shared with us.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
So you move on to public hearing?
Yes.
Is there?
we're
That-
ready.
Okay. All righty, we will move on to public hearing, and we will begin with Michelle Mitchell.
I can hold it if you like.
Jonathan would be happy to hold it for you. He is
No, I'm good.
multi-talented.
Stand,
Okay.
Jonathan, there is a stand underneath.
Is it 3 minutes, Renee?
Microphone.
Don't start my time yet, I need to sit up for a second, okay?
Bottom left, Jonathan.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We'll just have to get this closer.
I suppose just.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, test it, can you hear me?
Test, test, test.
I'm not speaking loud enough. Okay, hi, my name's Michelle Mitchell, school parent, local realtor, and community volunteer. I'm here to discuss some of my thoughts for Highland High School after attending many of the recent meetings regarding the school. The biggest bond option on the survey sent out for a new high school, the thought of performing arts, summer swimming pool, field houses, all the things that a big bond could bring to the community. It's really exciting. I understand that the fire did create an opportunity for our board and our community to think big for a second, which is amazing, don't get me wrong. However, what I think and consider it creating was a crisis mode for our kids that are displaced currently. The last meeting regarding Highland was all over the place, kind of a circus, where the attention of the meeting actually went away from the true priority right now, which is Highland High School. There was a point in time where Pocatello High School was in a similar scenario, not because of a fire, but because of other needs, and the district and the current board at that time went to work, putting Pocatello High School as a priority, not just to do the bare minimum required, but to also enhance the school for future growth and longevity. They did a great job. Pokey pride is louder and prouder than ever. And with the Highland Aspire at this school should be placed as the main priority as well at this moment in time, with the same goal in mind as Pokey, to restore Highland High School back to fully functioning capacity, as well as enhance it for future growth and the longevity for the successes of all educational and athletic opportunities for our students to have at this school. These bond requirements and requests are due soon on the ballot, and time is of the essence. There absolutely is no way the community should or would support the largest bond possible for the future dreaming being done. It's not reasonable or responsible at this time. But the board does need to maintain and possibly get a minimal vote for a bond that will enhance, similar to Pokey, and its extended enhancements for whatever the future of this school may be. To get my point understood, an analogy is this deck of cards. The time it takes for these gentlemen to do their job, right? Planning. We all know decisions for a swimming pool, field house, arts, performing arts center, new high school, shifting elementary schools, shifting middle schools. All of these will require research, committees, planning, more planning. We have everything in place, right? We think we're doing all the right things, we're moving all the right directions, but with the little time we have, we start making mistakes, we start forgetting things are lost in translation, the circus keeps going round and round, and you have this right here in front of you, which is an ugly, ugly stack of cards. But wait, oh, we forgot, we're out of cards, but now we have to rezone with a new high school, a new middle school or elementary schools. Some of you have been here for boundary lines, which were a really ugly thing. And right now, we just have to come back to the table, I think, for a bigger and better bond for our community when it does create and support and enhance all of School District 25 with thought and consideration. Right now, the thought and consideration needs to remain Highland High School. Do what's right, be smart, build Highland and its students back up to what its true original potential should and needs to be. It's necessary, and strictly put the priority stays high school above all else until anything else can be done. And you said time? Yes.
Time. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get to show you this deck of cards. This is what I would like a bond to look like when it's presented to the community. I'd like it to be nice and neat and prepared and thought out and the time put into it and not passed up quickly and quickly where mistakes can be made. It should look like this, not this.
Okay, next on, we have, are you about? Okay, next we have Isaac Mitchell.
Hi. So I'm just gonna finish off because I don't think she was done. So, as previous meetings mentioned, elementary schools are old and need a little bit of work. These schools might be old and need attention, but kids currently have a second home in that school. Our junior highs maybe get a little bit full, but they also have a place, a second home. Highland High School has no home, has no place. Highland High School has kids that are displaced, which we've all talked about right now. The school district and the board need to shift the priority strictly to Highland High School and the school to restore and enhance. I'm asking that you use the insurance money and ask for the smallest bond option to meet the current future needs of Highland High School. My sincere hope is that our community recognizes that our kids of Highland High School are in need and our community would come together and help and support one another pass a smaller bond option. If no bond passes for one reason or another, I implore the board and the district to keep Highland High School a priority above all other projects within reason. Until the school is not just rebuilt to the bare minimal option, but until it can be enhanced as well. It's not just the school you're rebuilding, school morale. The sense of pride in their school is just as important. The district has always wanted the school pride in their schools, a positive culture and an environment, a place to create growth and flourish to, these kids flourish to their best potential. The school district needs to take the next year or two, whatever time it takes to bring back not just the building, but a place for these kids to thrive and can be stable, structured, and have support where they feel like they matter. This kind of opportunity is what we need and what the kids deserve. Is what the other two high schools currently have in our area and is what Highland High School does not currently have right now. Your time, effort, and energy moving forward should mean focusly on Highland High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is that, that's all we have for this meeting? And do I call for nomination?
No, just.
Okay, as I declare us adjourned.